How's it going, everybody? It's Ben from the Ben and Bev channel. We're back today with a review of 2016's French-language body horror film, Raw. Raw is a 2016 coming-of-age body horror film / drama, and was the debut from director Julia Ducournau.
Well, I'm familiar with the pronunciation. They've been making rounds through the news recently with this movie called TITANE, or Titania.
It's supposed to be one of the better and more unique horror films of the year, and I plan on reviewing it this upcoming week. But upon doing research for that movie, I noticed
that this infamous French film
is by the same director. It naturally seemed like it was about time to give this movie a shot. Real quick before we get too deep into this, thanks you guys so much for watching and tuning in, especially when reviewing really weird and obscure movies like this. If you could just leave a like below, it really helps us out getting these videos out there.
And any help's appreciated.
I've heard of Raw before. The year it was released, it created a lot of hubbub because it caused a lot of people to
get sick or have an ambulance call during the premiere or whatever the story was to get the headlines going.
Rather disturbing and gory. So I just kind of had it on the back burner waiting to be watched on night when I'm alone, because there's not really anyone I watch movies like this with, so I've just been waiting for the right time. And being as the director is the same one, as I figure what better time than the present. The movie starts out introducing us to our main character, Justine, who's a girl who's just hitting college age and is about to be sent off to veterinary school. You get these opening scenes kind of establishing the relationship with her parents and how her mother can be more overbearing and overprotective, particularly when it comes to the vegetarian aspect of things, and her father being more laid back. These opening scenes do a really great job of setting up insecurity as well as more nonverbal approach to conversation that Justine has with people. It adds to the tension of starting a new school and a new group of classmates, especially one that has such an infamous reputation like this one does for very high levels of hazing bordering on abuse. While the movie does have gore-centric scenes, this centralized story about this girl coming of age and going to school and just wanting to be accepted, and start to learn about this character and how she reacts to things, you begin to understand the whole awkwardness of this situation. And they do a really good job of increasing the tension with the awkwardness of this film. The hazing honestly caught me off guard at the very beginning. I didn't know what was going on when it started happening. They started tearing through everyone's rooms, not trying to give away too much here, but the hazing is very extreme at this school. It is beyond any hazing I've seen before. That was not an aspect of the movie I was anticipating going forward. I knew it was about someone who begins to have a taste for food, but I didn't really know the whole setup of the school. But at the very opening of the hazing, they have her eat some type of raw animal organ. As she begins her taste for raw flesh, you start to see expand, and as she begins to mature, that also matures with her as her taste for raw flesh
gets even larger.
Well, I've seen movies like Wrong Turn or the
adaptation of Jack Ketchum's The Offspring
center around cannibalism and the taste for raw flesh. The way this movie handles it with a stark sense of realism paired with the coming of age story makes it even more disturbing than it actually is. None of the scenes that are burned in my memory are anywhere near the most violent thing that I've witnessed in a film.
Particularly French films, may I add.
Always violent.
But the very real tone of everything makes it almost impossible to watch. The long shots showing someone beginning to understand their yearning for flesh and how it makes the happy chemicals in their brain go pop. It's a little weird to see as a human being. It hits like a chord in your stomach that makes you want to stop watching it. Now, it didn't make me sick or want to throw up. I will say, I cringed. A lot more than I normally do in a movie just because of how much emotion I already had tied with our lead character, Justine. The actress, I'm going totally blank on her name, but she did a phenomenal job capturing throughout late teenager energy. You really feel the awkwardness from her character and that yearning for one experience a little more in her life. So while everything that you could possibly imagine is wrong with this movie,
it's extremely violent, hypersexualized, lots of drug use, lots of cruelty, awkwardness, tension, and even large amounts of bullying.
It's still handled with this sense of realism to the point that it never gets campy. It never enters that gore-fest horror movie level of ridiculousness. This doesn't feel violent for the sake of being violent. It has a very natural flow to it, which I think is what makes this movie so effective. Besides being disturbing, it's also really brilliantly executed. The shots, the narrative choices, the acting, direction, soundtrack, all of it is really well done in this film. It is pretty mind-blowing considering the absolutely ludicrous, bizarre, and sadistic idea that this film centered around. Overall, this film pleasantly surprised me by being a lot more clever, as well as a lot more disturbing than I was planning on it being. I was planning on it being extremely violent, I just didn't expect it to hit me quite in the way it did. It was very similar to the movie Goodnight Mommy that I've covered previously on this channel. The really intense and disturbing scenes weren't worse than anything you've seen before, but just the way it's done with the sense of suspense and tension and release really just make it hard to watch. And while I did find myself wanting to turn it off at a couple scenes, watching someone just love eating raw flesh, whole bunch of questions about this movie and how no one is messed up walking away from it. It's almost like a romance movie written for cannibals or like a coming-of-age story for them. It's just an utterly bizarre and, to most people, sick concept that I don't know if most people have the stomach for this movie, but to me, I think it is brilliantly executed. The director,
Julia Ducournau, however the pronunciation is,
they absolutely know what they're doing when it comes to tension in a film. Suspense was real. The absolute twist of an ending neatly places the whole movie together. That and just the full scope of emotion you feel, it really caught me off guard. I mean, there are some tender moments between the two sisters in the last act after some really sick things have happened that are
weirdly touching?
I don't even know if I want to say it. It's just the moments you felt the emotion. You felt the sadness and the heartbreak and the healing. And it makes me even more excited to be reviewing. My overall rating for 2016's Raw is an 8.9 out of 10. As disturbing as the movie is, I think the film does a really great job of being extremely creative and emotionally invested with our lead character, and provides one of the most well-rounded, disturbing horror movie experiences I've ever seen. It's not one you watch just because it's messed up. The story in it does tug at your heartstrings, even though you don't have very many similarities with characters. There's just enough about them that's human for you to feel that struggle and make you even more disturbed as the story develops. Have you guys seen Raw? Do you think it's a masterpiece, or does it make you want to go vegetarian? Let us know in the comments below. We'll see you guys next time. Ben and Bev.